So you guys all know me. I'm the big bad wolf. And I'm always the bad guy in fairy tales. Like the Three Little Pigs, Little Red Riding Hood, and The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Although seriously, The Boy Who Cried Wolf is not my fault. I never asked him to say my name. So why am I always penalized for it? But why am I always the bad guy? And why is my side of the story never told? Well, before we can answer that question, let's look at the writers of these fairy tales. Grimm's fairy tales are a collection of fairy tales that were first established in 1812 by the Grimm's brothers, Jacob and Willem Grimm. And you can thank them for the classic story of Little Red Riding Hood. Then we have AESOP'S Fables. AESOP'S Fables are a collection of fables that were put together by a slave and storyteller, Aesop, who was said to live in ancient Greece. There are over 600 fables, but I know that you know at least one of them. And that one is The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Next we have modern fairy tales adapted by Joseph Jacobs. And he would take old fairy tales and fables and adapt them into more modern times. Although he has edited hundreds of fairy tales, he is most famously known, at least to me anyway, by editing The Three Little Pigs. Oink. So now that we know who wrote fairy tales, we should take a look at what fairy tales actually are. A fairy tale is a book genre, and a genre just means the category the book falls under. And to have a fairy tale, you have to have specific key elements. So let's look over the key elements of fairy tales. A fairy tale has to take place in a distant, magical, faraway land, like The Wizard of Oz takes place in Oz. And magic elements are needed, like a fairy godmother, or how I have the magic ability to puff a house down. There's always a hero and a villain. And you can guess which character I always get written as. The villain. Fairy tales often involve royalty, although they don't have to. Like Cinderella has a prince, and pretty much every Disney movie has a prince. One of the most popular elements is a problem that gets solved in the end. So, the problem of Hansel and Gretel. They were going to be eaten by a witch, but in the end, they weren't. And the last key element of a fairy tale is that there always is a happily ever after, which I never seem to get, so that does not seem fair. Often, fairy tales are written in a narrative, which means it's writing from a third person's perspective, so they know both sides of the story and our character's thoughts. So what makes the good guy in a fairy tale everybody's favorite character? Like, why don't they like me the best? Well, most writers try to make the main character the good guy, or the hero. And most main characters have a goal that they want to achieve at the end of the fairy tale. And Little Red Riding Hood's goal is to go visit her grandmother and have family bonding time. And all writers want their main character to be someone that you can root for. Think of Little Red Riding Hood. Now, if she wasn't this sweet, innocent little girl who was going to visit her sick grandmother, would you really care if I really ate her? Because, honestly, if she wasn't, I don't think you would care about her. So now that we know about the good guys, then why do they even have to have the villains in the story? Why can't everyone be good? Without a bad guy, or an obstacle, the story would be very short and very boring. Like, let's use the Three Little Pigs for example. Imagine if I wasn't in the story. If there was no one bothering the little pigs and blowing down their houses. Okay, let's think about this. If I wasn't there to blow down their houses, they would never know how to build a proper house. They would be living in straw houses that would fall down during the first windstorm. See, I made sure that they were safe. I taught them the smart thing to do. So really, you should be thanking me. So let's review the things that we learned about fairy tales today. We learned about 3 famous fairy tale authors. We viewed the basic elements of a fairy tale. We looked at the point of view of which most fairy tales are written. We talked about the characteristics of the main character and also the characteristics of the villain. And lastly, we realized the importance of obstacles and villains in a story. Oh, and of course we learned that I'm a good guy, not a bad guy, just to make that clear. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that I taught you some key elements and points to writing a fairy tale. And I challenge you to write your own fairy tale, or even better, rewrite a fairy tale and make me the good guy instead of a bad guy. Also, the question of the day is, what is your favorite fairy tale? Let us know down in the comments below. You can visit our website, www.bringingsmartback.com, for lesson plans on this episode and all the other episodes on Bringing Smart Back. Also, you can visit our Pinterest account and look at all fun activities that go along with this episode and fairy tales. Come back next week to do some wacky and fun experiments with our science fairy, Volty Flicker Flame. Bye! I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow down your unstable house so you know how to build better houses.